normally cooperating with another for a military or other purpose. Now, Bond has many allies within the Bond franchise who have aided him in his missions along the way. Some have fallen by the wayside, others have returned again and again. Hello, Vicky here, and welcome to the Bond Room Unlocked, whereby we take an item from this 28-year-old collection and relate it to one of the films that we know and love. And today it's one of the truest spy films, and my second favourite. From Russia with Love from 1963, and possibly Bond's best ally, and certainly my favourite, Kerim Bey. We will also hear from 3 fans from the Bond community who will tell us about their favourite allies, starting with Ronald Hume.
So some of the best parts of the James Bond movies, for me, are James Bond's friendships with other guys. Because, you know, you always have a Bond girl, and James Bond is kind of a solitary animal. But there are a few times in the movies in which he has a friendship with another guy, which I find very, very heartwarming, nice and cool. And, you know, there's Kerim Bey, there's Felix Leiter, there's Jack Wade in GoldenEye. But for me, the one that I really love is VJ. So VJ is a character from 1983's Octopussy, played by world-famous Vijay Amritaj, who back in the 80s, he was a professional tennis player. And during the 1970s, he had this incredible career. He beat Bjorn Borg, and he beat John McEnroe, who was some of the best tennis players of their generation. And then in the 80s, he moved to California and said, I'm going to be an actor. And he was in, like, Heart to Heart, which is a TV show I remember watching as a kid. Later on, he'd be in a Star Trek movie. He played a captain in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. But I remember him best as playing VJ, who, you know, same name, who is the British Secret Service agent that James Bond teams up with in Udaipur. And they're tracking down Kamal Khan. And it's often you have characters in James Bond movies who are kind of played for laughs. But VJ was like this big, charming guy who disguised himself as a tennis pro. He was competent. There's this great scene as they're racing through the streets of, I can't remember where it was filmed, but VJ is like driving this little tuk-tuk and he's whacking people with his tennis racket, and he's a really competent character, and he gets on with James Bond, and they make jokes together, and there's a real friendship there. And when VJ dies at the end of Octopussy, it is one of the only moments in the Roger Moore movies in which I really felt like emotion. So for me, he was a really seminal character in the James Bond series, and I love him. He's my favourite James Bond friend.
VJ is a good choice, and certainly one that gets forgotten about, I'd say. He's a light-hearted character, but his death is certainly one of the grimmest in the franchise. Let's move on to my favourite ally in the Bond franchise, Kerim Bey, from Russia with Love. What I love about this character is his relationship with Bond. They have a mutual respect for one another and really enjoy the finer things in life: wine, women, good living. Now, Kerim Bey is portrayed by Pedro Armendariz, a Mexican-American actor that made a name for himself in the 40s and 50s with Western films, and he was a well-respected actor in his field. Now, whilst filming From Russia with Love, Armendariz was suffering with terminal cancer, and he wanted to see that his family was financially happy after his death, so he took on the part and died 4 months before the film was released.
Hi guys, this is Cal from BD007. So I got asked, who is Bond's best ally? And my answer is Felix Leiter, from David Hedison, who played in Live and Let Die and License to Kill. I just think that the bond that has between them, Bond and Leiter is just electric. So obviously in Live and Let Die, he in the Fillet of Soul saved him from getting killed in the back alley, and then in License to Kill, the way they work together in catching Sanchez the first time were just simply amazing. They've always got each other's backs. I kind of think they work in the same field. Yeah, they're just more or less like family. I mean, you see the love in License to Kill, where, you know, obviously the unfortunate thing happened to Felix, and the way Bond just, well, turned it into a vendetta and absolutely did everything he could to save his friend. It's just what's the word? Unimaginable bond that they have between them. And yeah, that's my greatest ally. I mean, all the Felix Leiters that I played in the Bond series have been absolutely amazing, but David Ledison is my number one Felix Leiter. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.
David Hedison is a great choice for Felix Leiter. I was fortunate to meet him a number of years ago before he passed away. He worked so well with the character because this character had to work with two different Bonds, Roger Moore in Live and Let Die, and then of course 16 years later Timothy Dalton in License to Kill. And it was more in License to Kill that we saw the relationship come out, because as Cole rightly said, Bond is on a vendetta to avenge the mutilation of his long-time friend. So we know that they've built up years and years of service together, and Bond is out to avenge this.
Welcome to Istanbul.
Well, thank you for sending the car, but it does rather tie you in with me.
You're in the Balkans now, Mr. Bond. The game with the Russians is played a little differently here. The day-to-day routine matters, we don't make it too difficult to keep a tab on each other.
So I gathered from your chauffeur. He's a rather intelligent young man, by the way.
He should be. He's my son. Coffee?
Medium sweet.
2 medium sweet. He also is my son. All of my key employees are my sons. Blood is the best security in this business.
What I like about the clip that we've just seen is from that few minutes of meeting, you can see there is an admiration between the two men, and that loyalty is a strong trait within Kerim Bey's family. I mean, he has his sons as his staff, so at least, you know, he knows he can trust them and it becomes less complicated. I want to share with you a still that I have from Russia with Love, which shows a very key scene and one of my favourite scenes within the film. Here we have Bond standing motionless to the right of the picture, with Kerim Bey holding an AR-7 sniper rifle, resting it on Bond's shoulder for a steady aim. His plot is to assassinate Krylenko, who attacked the encampment earlier on in the film, and he uses Bond there to steady his aim as Krylenko appears out of a trap door and is shot dead by Kerim Bey.
Hello Bond fans, this is Terry Malloy from Thank You for the Music. And before we get going, I'd just like to thank Victoria for giving me this opportunity to talk about my favourite Bond ally. And my favourite Bond ally is none other than Tracy Bond. And before I talk about why she may be a good Bond ally, I have to have a confession that when On Her Majesty's Secret Service came out in December 1969, I was an impressionable 11-year-old. And in those days, films didn't get a nationwide release on the same day. So actually, I didn't see the film until March 1970 when it reached Gloucestershire, where I lived, and I was nearly 12. So not only did I like the film and the skiing, and I didn't really mind we had a new Bond, I was just mesmerised by the beauty of Diana Rigg and the character that she played as Tracy Bond. And so I have a very affectionate memory of what Tracy Bond meant to me as a highly impressionable 12-year-old. But let's try and move the video forward and put it into the context of why I think she's a great ally for Bond. I think the first thing to say is they come from similar backgrounds. damaged childhoods, if you like. Tracy's father was involved in organized crime, so she was brought up knowing about violence. Bond's family, his parents died in a skiing accident, so he was used to, he had a damaged childhood in that relationship, but he also joined MI6, so he was used to violence, and so they have a similar kind of violent ground. But they also have a real joy of life. They are a bit carefree maybe in life. They like adventure. They both like skiing. They both like fast cars. They both like gambling. And I think when we're talking about an ally, we're talking about trust. And it's so much easier to trust somebody when you feel as though they've got your back. And it's so much easier to know somebody's got your back when you feel as though you've got things in common. And so their backgrounds and their common interests, I think, make it easier for Bond to feel she's his ally. But actually in the film, she probably saved Bond more times than any other character in the franchise. The first time is, well, in this part, in the film, him sleeping with Tracy actually happens after he's saved her from suicide. In the book, it's the other way around. They sleep together and then he saves her from suicide. And that moment is a bit lost in the film, but it taps into a part of Bond that he cares about somebody and wants to look after them. And that sows a seed, I think, of Tracy meaning more to him than any other person ever had. In the film, the first time she really saves him is after he's escaped from Piz Gloria and he's sitting on a bale of straw and the henchmen are all after him. And Tracy skis up to him and he looks at the legs and looks up and says something about her getting an interest in winter sports, and she corrects him and says, one winter sportsman. If she hadn't been there, he would have been caught by the bad guys, and so she saved him from that. She also saved him when he proposed to her in the barn, because there was something in that moment where she was saving him from himself. She was saving his soul. So that's another important part of the story. There's also the part that in Piz Gloria, when she's captured by Blofeld and in Piz Gloria, she hears her father and Bond's voice on the radio, and she engages Blofeld and distracts him so that they can arrive and attack Piz Gloria. And without doing that as his ally, they wouldn't have been able to get to Piz Gloria and carry out the mission and save the day, as it were. And then, of course, you've got the death, and that death has affected Bond throughout the rest of the films. It's affected him throughout the rest of his life, and certainly in the books. The next book is You Only Live Twice, and he's grieving the loss of his wife. I think the fact we grieve, and we deeply grieve, the people who we care about. And I don't think you can have a better illustration of somebody being a true ally, is that when you've lost your ally, you feel lost, you feel bereft. So that's my Bond ally, Tracy Bond. Love to know what you think in the comments below. Until I have an opportunity to maybe meet some of you at a Cue the Music concert, take care. Bye-bye.
Wow. Now, when we think of an ally, we never really think of a Bond girl. So this is a fascinating choice by Terry. Women in the films tend to get labelled Bond girls just from the encounters that they have with Bond. And of course, many of them are resilient and resourceful and aid Bond in completing the missions, like Wai Lin, Camille Montez, Pam Bouvier, Paula Kaplan, to name but a few. And you can't get more of a direct choice of ally as Mrs. Bond. I mean, she marries Bond, be it briefly, but of course Bond has chosen Tracy over all of the many other women that he's encountered, and she is obviously more than a match for him.
Why do you persist in rescuing me, Mr. Bond?
It's becoming a habit, isn't it, Contessa Teresa?
Teresa was a saint. I'm known as Tracy.
That's it for the Ally episode today. If you've enjoyed it, please give it an MI6 stamp of approval and click on the notifications below. And why not subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any further missions. I'd like to thank my guests for today, Ronald Hume, Carl Brain from BD007, and also Terry Malloy from Thank You for the Music. Please check out their stuff too. It's really enjoyable. And I'd like to thank you guys for joining me here at the Bond Room Unlocked.